hi Year 8, hope you're all well. Let's just to say, first of all, thank you all for those essays you sent me in. I finished marking them all last week, and I was actually really impressed by what I read. A lot of you had done some fantastic work, which, given you had to write it all by yourself at home without any lesson to get you ready for it, was so impressive. So thank you so much, and well done for some of that work, guys. I was really pleased. So in today's lesson, what I'm going to ask you to do is spend a bit of time going over the marking and all the feedback I've sent back to you, and trying to make your essays even better. So trying to do a bit of that dirt process that we always do when we hand in work that gets marked, and to improve it. So what I thought I'd do, just to help you guys out, is obviously I've given you all quite long detailed feedback on emails, along with some activities that I'd like you to complete. But I thought I'd make a little video just to kind of go over some of the common things that I found, some of the common sort of mistakes and pitfalls and things that people did, just to try and help you out in terms of making that essay just that much better, okay, to help you out with that dirt process. So I'll try and keep it nice and speedy and succinct, but hopefully it's going to be helpful for you. So we'll start with the introduction. Now, you've written a lot of essays by now, so you should kind of be up to speed with what an introduction needs to do. But just to be clear, essentially a good introduction is going to have 4 elements, 4 parts, okay? And a lot of them are to do with this thing here, which is a signpost. A signpost, now you see them all around, okay? Obviously we know what a signpost is. We live normal lives, we've been on roads before. A signpost points you in the direction you're going. It shows you where you're going, where you're going to go. It helps you find your way. And that's what we want to do in an introduction as well. So a big part of what you do in an introduction is you tell me what the essay is doing, where I'm going, where you know, the direction of travel. Okay, so let's just break down the 4 things I want to see and show you how you might do them. Okay, and a lot of you did this great, but there's 1 or 2 people that need to have a think about their introduction for the future. Okay, so the first thing we do in yellow is we do context. Okay, context is just details to kind of introduce me to the topic you're talking about. Okay, some basic information. So let's, by way of an example, the First World War was the first global war in history, raging from 1914 to 1918. At the time, it was described as the Great War, or the war to end all wars, and it was one of the deadliest ever human conflicts, with an estimated 9 million combatant deaths and 13 million civilian deaths as a direct result of the fighting. It was a hugely significant moment in history which changed the world forever in terms of technology, medicine, politics, and even geography. So what I've done there is I've introduced the topic of my essay. I've given some details, okay, you know, this is why this is an important thing, this is the First World War, okay, and I've got ready to start the essay. Now, this information was really easy to find. You can just look it up online, you can read a book, all right, it's not complicated stuff, all right, but it's just important things. So, you know, when did the war happen? How many people died? Why was it important? Those are the kind of things I want you to talk about in your context. So it only needs to be a couple of sentences, but it's an important thing to have. So when you've given me your context, the next thing you need to do in introduction is tell me what the essay is about. What is the aim of your essay? What are you going to show me? So, again, let's just show by way of example. In this essay, I'm going to explain why such a catastrophic worldwide disaster broke out. Whilst the war was actually triggered by the assassination of the Austro-Hungarian heir, Archduke Franz Ferdinand, on 28th of June 1914, a number of long-term causes had been brewing for decades. Okay, so I've kind of summarised what my essay is going to look at. I'm going to just explain why the war happened, and we're going to look at long-term causes, and we're going to look at short-term causes. Okay, I've summarised the basic overview of my essay. Now we're going to signpost in more detail. So the first thing we've got to signpost is what factors we're going to look at. I will be looking at the different factors that led to the outbreak of war, which are militarism, alliances, imperialism, nationalism, and the short-term causes that followed the assassination. Okay, so that's just your essay plan. It's just what each of your paragraphs is. Okay, so that's really easy. Okay, it's just rattling off what each paragraph's going to be about. Just again, signposting, direction of travel, letting me know what this essay is going to do for me. And then, and this is the thing that a lot of people forgot, is we need to signpost the judgment. Okay, we don't just say, I'm going to look at all these things and then I'm going to make a decision, find out at the end. That's not a good history essay. All right, the way I think about it is, imagine if you were in court for a crime and your lawyer came out and he did his opening speech and he said, well, I'm going to look at both sides. Maybe he's innocent, maybe he's guilty. I'll tell you at the end. You know, that would be rubbish. You wouldn't want your lawyer to do that. The whole point is you're constructing an argument, i.e. you've got to tell me what you're going to decide right now, right from the start. So, i.e. the lawyer would say, and I'm going to prove to you why he's innocent. Okay, and in this case, you're going to prove to me what the most important factor was. So, I believe that the most important reason for the outbreak of World War I was nationalism. Okay, so that's a really good introduction. We've got the context in yellow, we've got the aims of the essay in sort of pinky colour, we've got factors, signposting, what are we going to look at? And then we've got what our judgment is, signposted in blue. Okay, so you need to go back over your introduction and check that you've got all 4 of those elements in place. Okay, it doesn't need to be crazy long, all right, but it needs to have those key elements there. Okay, that's the introduction. So let's move on to the paragraphs themselves now. Now, one paragraph that a lot of you guys found quite tricky to write was about imperialism, because it's quite a tricky concept. Okay, that idea of building your empire and controlling other countries. So I thought we'll do a paragraph about imperialism as our example. Okay, so here is the paragraph that I have right now, and we're going to spend the rest of this video making it better. So it's a nice peel paragraph, it's got all the things it needs to, but it's obviously very short, so we need to make it better. So let's read it how it is right now. Imperialism was very important leading to the outbreak of World War I. Fine, good point. At the time, there were lots of countries who wanted to expand their empires and take more land and resources, or simply control smaller countries. Okay, some evidence. This contributed to the outbreak of war because it meant competition over land brought countries into conflict with one another, which ultimately led to global war. That's our explanations. We've shown why does this lead to war. Link it back. This shows that imperialism was a key factor in the outbreak of war in 1914. Now that's a perfectly solid paragraph, right? It's a peel paragraph, it does what we need it to do. But there's lots of ways in which we can make it better. And the first way we can make it better is by giving it more detailed evidence. Okay, so a lot of you will have this as your even better if, okay, on your feedback. Ensure you are backing up your ideas with at least 2 to 3 pieces of detailed specific evidence. Who, where, what, when, and how. So what I mean is I want names, I want dates, I want places, I want statistics, I want figures, I want as much detail as possible. So let's see how that might look in this paragraph. Okay, so this is what we had to start with, just quite vague, just a general comment. Wow, okay, that's a lot more evidence, isn't it? So let's have a look at that. At this time, many of the great European powers, such as Germany, hoped to expand their empires and gain greater access to valuable resources, such as raw materials, food, gold, and diamonds. A large empire also provided more opportunity for trade, as well as simple prestige and status. Good, so I've said why people want an empire, and I've given a lot more detail about that. So that's my first bit of evidence. Notice I've numbered them, all right, because this isn't just one bit of evidence. No. This is at least 2 to 3. This is 4. Okay, so that's our first bit. Next bit. For instance, as of 1900, like that, nice date, Great Britain controlled a third of the world's land in her enormous empire, which made other countries, particularly Germany, very jealous. That's another bit of information. Okay, third bit. This jealousy and competition had led to events such as the Scramble for Africa between 1870 and 1900, which had created a lot of tension between European powers as they competed to grab as much territory in Africa as possible. Cool, this is good, all right. Look, we've got precise dates, we've got names, we've got places, we've got all the details I like to see. And then our final bit. Meanwhile, there were also old, crumbling empires desperately trying to maintain their dominance, such as Austria-Hungary and the Balkans, who annexed Bosnia to add to their empire in 1908. So that's great. So I've got lots of different evidence in here. I've talked about Britain's empire. I've talked about the scramble for Africa. I've talked about Austria-Hungary and their empire and wanting to keep Bosnia. Okay, so lots of different examples and all very detailed. And you've got a great source for all this because I gave you a card sort, didn't I, to help you get ready for this essay. So let's open that back up. I've attached it to show my homework. Okay, look at that. All of lots of precise, wonderful, detailed evidence that you can use. Now, what I will say, guys, is make sure you don't just copy and paste. It needs to be in your own words, but you can use this evidence to help you pad out your essay, help add that extra detail that we need so much. Okay, so that's stage 1. We've added some more detailed evidence. Perfect. Okay, what next? Okay. So next bit is explanation. Okay, so the way I like to sort of show this is the evidence shows me what you know, okay, which is good. I need to know what you know, which is good. I need to know that detail. The explanation shows me what you understand. Okay, so it's a bit harder but it's almost more important. Okay, so in this case, this is the paragraph we just wrote. Loads of fantastic detail because we added all that in. Good. Let's look at the explanation. So in green, this contributed to the outbreak of war because it meant competition over land brought countries into conflict with one another, which ultimately led to global war. Not bad, but not good either. All right, it doesn't actually tell us what led to war breaking out. It's very general. Okay, let's make it better. So let's see how we can make this even better. Okay, we want to really, really lay out how this kind of competition, this imperialism, contributed to war breaking out. Okay, this contributed to the outbreak of war because it meant competition over land brought countries into conflict with one another, which ultimately led to global war. Okay, so that's what we already had. Competition to seize African territories directly increased the rivalry between Germany and Britain and left the Kaiser feeling inadequate and desperate to expand Germany's power in Europe and take more territory in places such as France. Okay, can you see what I've done there? I've looked at something I've talked about in my evidence, the scramble for Africa, and I've explained directly how that bit of evidence caused war. Okay, now what obviously is a great thing to do in this essay in particular, the causes of World War I, is link all of this long-term stuff to the short-term stuff. Okay, so those long-term causes to the short-term events, the assassination and then arse that followed it. Okay, so let's have a go at that. Meanwhile, imperialism also helped to directly trigger the short-term causes for war, as it was Austria-Hungary's efforts to expand their empire in the Balkans by holding on to Bosnia that led to the Serb nationalist Black Hand Gang seeking to assassinate Franz Ferdinand. So some great explanation there. I've shown why this evidence, all of these pieces of evidence, I've linked them to the war breaking out, and I've shown why that is, and I've also linked it directly to those short-term causes too. So this isn't just a general, imperialism made people want empires and that was bad because it made them want to fight. It's really precise, it's really detailed, and it shows just how much I know and understand about this topic. Okay, and obviously you guys do too, I would hope. You did a cause and consequence activity to help you prepare for this essay, and that perhaps is something you can look at to help you do this. And I'll put that on Show My Homework as well. Okay, so final stage. So this is where you make your essay really, really good. This is the really hard bit. This is where you really show me what you're capable of. And that's where you link back to the question. And also, if you really want to be clever, you link to other factors. Okay, so not all of you need to be doing this. A lot of you need to worry about these things first. Get your evidence, get your explanation, get that solid. But if you've already done a good job at that, and your sort of mission, your dirt activity is to look at links, this is what you might want to do. Okay, so what we want to do is show two things. Firstly, how it links to the questions. That's easy. This shows that imperialism was a key factor in the outbreak of war. Job done. Everyone's done that. That's just how you do a pure paragraph. And then what we also want to do, and I put OF here to show this, is link it to other factors to show me how imperialism in this case links to everything else. So let's have a look. Imperialism can also be linked to other long-term causes of the war. To be able to take new territories and defend those they already had, countries became very militaristic and expanded their armed forces. For instance, Britain needed a strong navy to defend trade with its overseas colonies. Okay, so I've linked it to militarism. The desire for an empire was also driven by nationalism, as it was a way of increasing the prestige and power of your country. So that's a typo. Okay, so you can see I didn't link it to everything, but I found a few ways to link it into my other factors, just to show how complex my understanding is. Like I can see all these different things. They're not completely discrete things that exist separately. They all intermingle and come together to make the war. Of course, everything, all of these factors were important. So I need to show how they interlink to show I understand that. Okay, so look what we've done, guys. By making these improvements, we've gone from this paragraph at the start of the PowerPoint, okay, this paragraph here, to this paragraph here. We've added all that extra detail to our evidence. We've padded our explanation to really show what we know. And then we've also even been really clever and added some links to the other factors at the end. Okay, so those are the kind of things I want you to be doing to make your paragraphs even better. Okay, gents, and use all the resources I've attached to Show My Homework to help you. And of course, you can, obviously ask me if you need a hand as well, if you're unsure how to do something. The final thing that I want somebody to think about is your evaluation. Okay, evaluation is where you weigh up all the different arguments and you make a decision. So it's done at the end of your essay, it's in your conclusion. Let's have a look at what a lot of you did. Overall, I think that nationalism was the most important cause of the First World War breaking out in 1914. This is because it made countries feel that they had something to prove and drove the European powers' determination to demonstrate their superiority over their rivals. It was also a Serb nationalist gang that triggered the war by assassinating the heir to the Austro-Hungarian throne. Therefore, nationalism was the most important factor leading to the outbreak of World War I. What's wrong with that? Because it's all right, it's all correct. It's just that paragraph again, it's just a pill, it's just telling me the reasons. It's just repeating the evidence I've already seen. Just telling me what I already know is not a way to evaluate, it's not how you make a decision. And I'm going to give you a little example to show you this. So let's imagine, forget World War I for a minute. Let's imagine you are making a judgment about which car is best. Okay, car 1, shiny and cool, car 2, cheap to run. Okay, and you've got to write me a conclusion, you've got to write me a judgment and back up that judgment as to which of these two cars is the best. Okay, the best one to get. So, what you could do is just say this, car 2 is the best because it's cheap to run. But that's weak, isn't it? That's just repeating evidence. That's why that initial conclusion that I gave you here wasn't great. Sorry, not that. No, it's not great because it's just the evidence again. Same thing here. It's just repeating what I already know. What we need to do to make that better is there are two things we can do in a conclusion that's really, really good. We can link things together and we can use that to make a decision, or we can compare things and we can use that to make a decision. And ideally, we want to do a mix of both. And I'll show you an example. So this is the comparison. Okay, this is a comparison way of making a decision. Car 2 is the best because it is more important to be cheap to run than look cool. Looks do not last forever, and being able to afford to keep using the car is more critical overall. So what I've done is I've compared these two bits of evidence that I've got, and I've said, well, this one is much more important because compared to that, it has all these other benefits. Okay, so I've compared. The other option is to link. So let's have a look at that. Car 2 is the best because I wouldn't even be able to afford car 1 without all the money saved thanks to car 2's low running costs. I can only have car 1 if I have car 2 first and save up. Therefore, if I had to choose, car 2 is better. So I've linked the two. I've said I can only get this one if I already have this one. So therefore, this one must be better. Okay, so that's linking. Okay, and if you've been doing that in your paragraphs already, you're probably already in a place where you can start doing that to make your judgment. So let's make this conclusion better by adding some links and adding some comparison. Links. All of the other factors had their roots in nationalism. The desire for an empire and to expand the military were both largely about increasing prestige and status and showing off the power of their nation. So I've said nationalism has to be more important than militarism and imperialism because that's what causes them. They link together. Okay, the same way I can only afford car 1 if I've already got car 2 and I've saved up money. You can only have militarism and imperialism if you've got nationalism first. Alliances were also ultimately driven by nationalism, as they were created as a form of protection for each nation's interests. So again, linking it. Eventually, in 1918, it was Slavic nationalism that led Gavrilo Princip and the Black Hand Gang to murder Archduke Franz Ferdinand and set off the chain of short-term causes that led to war. So there's some good linking going on to support my judgment. Now I'm going to really show off and I'm going to compare it as well. This was the trigger, but it was simply the straw that broke the camel's back. Remember Alphonse the camel? We did some work on him. That's what that's about. Nationalism was still more important, as without the years of tension leading up to 1914, for one thing, there would have been no reason to assassinate Franz Ferdinand at all. Plus, without this long-term build-up, a single murder in the Balkans would not have escalated to global war. It was merely a spark. The years of long-term tension created by nationalism provided the powder. Okay, so I've said without nationalism, the short-term causes, they couldn't have happened. So I've compared the two and I've said, look, this one couldn't exist without this one, so therefore this one's got to be more important. Okay, I've made some comparisons there, and I've also done links to all the other factors here. So that's a really, really strong piece of evaluation and a really, really strong conclusion. Okay, gents, thank you for listening. I hope that was somewhat helpful. Okay, obviously, if you need anything gone over again, please do let me know. And today's work is just about making that essay better. Okay, so use all of this advice and everything I've said to you in my feedback to make your essay the best essay it can be. And just to say again, well done, because some of you did some really fantastic work, and I've given out lots of house points to say good effort to you all.